Hi,
Welcome to another episode of Our Years. I'm Rima.
this is Barry.
And the other day I was just thinking that it was our 3-year anniversary at work. So happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
It's our first jobs in America.
Crazy.
Yeah, and we've both been in the same, our respective organizations for 3 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know where the 3 years went.
It's crazy because I feel like it's funny because I feel like I've been in this company for so long because of how much I've already done.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my experience has still I feel so new.
Yeah.
And there's still so much to learn. So 3 years feels like actually longer than what I feel like I've learned.
I know, it
Yeah.
feels like time is going both fast and
And
slow at
slow.
the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild because my company, when I joined, it feels like it's a completely different company right now. We've had like a couple of org changes, how we worked, or our product offerings have changed so much. And so it feels like it's a different company, but it's like I've been going on all these different journeys with the same people, like my colleagues. And it feels like I started yesterday because I still feel like a baby, but it like weeks feel like months and months feel like years. So it's like a really weird feeling. The
Yeah.
other day a colleague was like, what is time anymore? And I was like, I feel that.
You know, like I was thinking this the other day, is this how people say the most valuable thing in life is time,
Yeah.
especially like older people, right?
Yeah.
And I never used to understand that because like when you're a student, you have so much time to do
Dude,
whatever.
We had so much free time in undergrad.
Right.
I watched like every movie on the IMDb top 100 list, and now
Okay,
it takes
I
me
didn't
like
have
a
that
week.
much time.
Sorry. And now it takes me like a week to get through a movie because I'll have to keep pausing.
The only time like I've watched a movie was yesterday.
Oh, yeah,
when
last time we watched a movie.
Yeah. But then like before then, I don't remember the last time. Oh, we did. We went to AMC to watch. What is it?
The Materialist.
Yeah.
Which, side note,
I think it was so hyped up.
yeah.
But anyway, that's a discussion for another
Yeah.
day.
How do you think you've rewritten your career narrative and how you define a successful career in the last few years?
I think that's interesting because a lot to do with what you want out of your career has a lot to do with what your parents have painted in terms of what success in your career looks like. And having grown up with parents who had their own business, and then also family friends who we grew up with, they also had their own businesses. And then in addition, like my closer aunts and uncles all were business owners, right? And so I think I had this idea that, you know, in order to be successful is to run your own business because one, you make all the decisions.
Yeah.
Two is that you were so flexible in time. And then three, it was a rather, it secured stable income.
Yeah.
Right. And I think I just remember and this really impacted me growing up, right? Because I think I was just like, oh, we can just go on holiday whenever mom and dad decides to like shut down the company for like a good week or two, right? And I think that was the case. And because our family friends were also like that. And so every year, like all our family friends, we would like drive up to the Drakensberg Mountains, which is like one of like the resort areas in South Africa, every year for like a week or so, just to like hang out and, you know, and it's funny because everybody just shuts down the company.
You thought that that's the norm?
Yeah, that's the norm.
Yeah.
And that's what we would do. And like, I think my dad has always, you know, wanted us to be business owners for that reason. And
The
he's
flexibility that
the
comes with it?
flexibility and the stable income. I think to him, right, like working for someone else is just a lot of work. I remember my mom and dad saying, you know, Barry, like, you want to be your own boss because if someone is your boss, you always have to listen to them and like work because you're working for them, right?
Yeah.
And so you don't make the key decisions. You don't do exactly what you want to do. And so they've always kind of tried to like instill that idea in my brain, and I think it has, right? And ultimately I do still want to become an entrepreneur, but I think like having gone through certain things in life and also like what my peers are doing, so now this is where the peers come in. So growing up, because not all of my peers come from families of like business owners, right? And so a lot of them were like maybe lawyers' kids or doctors' kids, and so it's just the traditional path of like studying and then working, right? But a lot of them were like still owners of like dental practices or like just medical practices, right? But yeah, I think like because my peers and the way that I kind of walked my path through school, that kind of influenced me to go into a workplace. But having said that, I think like I think deep down, I still want to be
An entrepreneur?
Yeah, an entrepreneur. And I think it's because of my influence, my family's influence on me.
That's so interesting because my mom was also an entrepreneur. And for me, it didn't instill a sense of, oh, I want to do this as well. But it instilled more a sense of only people who feel really passionately about a particular problem. Like she was in education. She was in education for very young children, like kindergarten ages. And so she was very passionate about making sure that, people of all walks of life got quality education. Like that was the mission that she was trying to work towards. And so I just assumed all entrepreneurs have this like deep social message or a social impact they want to leave in the world, and that's why they become entrepreneurs. Like a lot of entrepreneurship I thought was very like noble, right, and run less like a business. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, people can I know a lot of successful entrepreneurs I know have picked like the most boring problem, like addressing, say, like time in manufacturing, like devices to track that. Like it's not something that you think is like a really exciting topic.
But that's the thing.
But they're very successful at what they do. And so that has been interesting in what I think entrepreneurship was and is.
Yeah. I think there's like different streams of like entrepreneurship and the motivation to be an entrepreneur, right? Like some people are money motivated, some people are passion motivated. And in that sort of sense, I think you're right in that, I guess because you were influenced by your mom, and so you were like passion oriented. Whereas for my parents, right, like I don't think they were passionate
about manufacturing
per se about the products we were making. But yeah, I think
they saw a problem. They saw a gap and they
in
knew
the
that
market.
They could address it.
Yes. And I think like that's the thing, right? Like everybody's motivated in different ways.
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like I have friends whose parents were very high up in their career ladder, like they were SVPs, directors, like C-suite level. And I feel like those friends who've seen their parents in those positions, they understood workplace stress very early on the effect that it can have on a person's physical health and the toll it can take. I feel like I realized that very later on in life because my parents, even though they had stressful jobs, I think they were very like 9 to 5. But then I didn't see so I didn't think their health was affected by the kind of jobs they do. But a lot of my friends now have picked careers because they know that they don't want like their physical health to get affected by their workplace. So I've never had that sort of mindset. So I definitely think what you're exposed to as a child is very influential in what you think a successful career is and what price you're willing to pay for that successful career. And idea of success is also so varied.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because my parents' generation with all the family friends and their siblings or cousins who were entrepreneurs, I think they were very motivated by money. And I think that is a result of them not having grown up with money, right? And so their focus was to have a lucrative job to support the family. And I'm very grateful for that, right? Because that has enabled me to get the resources and access to certain things that I believe is a privilege. But I think that also then enabled me to do what I'm passionate about rather than being just money motivated.
Yeah, it is a privilege for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's also, the narrative has changed now when I see folks around me as well as not everybody just wants to become CEO. There's other areas of success and I'm also learning that. Like you could be very good at a niche that you do and you're just very happy doing that for the rest of your life as opposed to you are more interested in mentorship and that's an important area that you want to work on. I feel like success in careers is so different when I look around me. It's also shaping what I think or reshaping what I thought successful careers meant. And so it's been interesting to see all that around me. One thing about career success that I've had to change the narrative on is when I was in my 20s, my career was my whole personality. I had very little going on outside of it. And I was almost proud of that. Like I was proud of how many hours I was working and it was like how little I was sleeping. And it was like...
You were proud of that?
I was like, oh, I'm doing such cool and good work.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I really drank the Kool-Aid of corporate life.
Is it because like the people around you also felt the same way?
I think so. We were all children. We were like 21. Now when I look back at the work, like we didn't know what we were doing, but I think it was so exciting that the things that we did, like I was in consulting in a data science company, and so it was exciting to talk to these clients and be like, oh, this my analysis is doing this for your business, and these were like Fortune 500 clients, so it was like so exciting. And so I think that sort of power went to my head. But yeah, it was like my whole personality, and I was doing very little outside of work. And I saw that has definitely changed in the last few years. I definitely don't want to be that person anymore. And now I do want to have a life outside of work.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, everyone around me was in that position too. So it was not like I sort of just was going with the flow. Yeah.
Was it almost like, that sounds pretty toxic to me, right? Like
it was very toxic.
Yeah. I mean, like, did your friends almost like want to be competitive in the sense that, oh, I'm spending so many hours of work, and that makes me like such a good employee?
No, it wasn't even like that. It wasn't even that energy. There was no competition amongst my friends. We were all working those hours, but we were just like, oh, this is life, right? And nobody was trying to one-up each other. That was something that I'm very grateful for, that there was no toxicity in my personal life or my friendships at work. It was not like that. It was not like a big circle jerk of, oh, I work more hours than you, I slept less or fewer hours than you. But we were all just doing it, and we all thought that was the norm.
You know, this is funny because I think like maybe this is an Asian culture versus Western culture sort of concept, right? I think like in Asian culture, you serve. It's like that serving mindset. You give a lot to your job.
Yeah.
And I think like it's almost like the pressure is a motivation, and also kind of like pushes you to do more. And if you don't do more with all the asks and requests and pressure, then it makes you seem weak and incompetent.
Yeah. This is basically hustle culture, right?
Yeah. And I think like that, I think it's worse in Asia than it is here. I think it's the concept of, to rise to the top, you need to go through all of that.
Yeah, it's the price you pay.
Yep.
In fact, like where I was, this workplace that's very toxic, like they almost told you that like this is the price of admission of success. And so then we lap that up.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And then like comparing it now that we're working in Western culture, right? Like I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. So there's still a lot of hours that go into work. But I think now that people talk a lot more vocally about like burnout and also about like boundary setting, I think I've kind of like learned that what I was doing in Asia maybe, and spending like so much time and work and energy is not, shouldn't be the norm.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's also part of growing up. The more like I'm comparing myself at what I was at 21 versus at 31, and I knew what I was willing to do for my job, right? I was not sure. There'll be days even now where we have to work like 12, 14 hours a day, but it's not glamorized. People are upset that it's happening. It shouldn't happen. And no one's normalizing it, right? But when I was 21, it was like, oh, you know, you're young and you're learning and it's okay to do this. And I sort of bought that, but I'm not going to do that anymore, right? I don't think like jobs we have now are always going to be 9 to 5, or you're never going to work a weekend. It's going to come and go, and you're going to have those moments. But I feel like you don't, like, I know now that you can be successful in your career without killing yourself at work.
Yeah. And you can still be successful by saying no
Right.
to projects and setting those boundaries. Like, I think that's like the difference, right? I think in Asia, we're scared of saying no because that may come across as we're incompetent to take on these tasks and do it well.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you're human. You simply don't have enough bandwidth to go and cover everything that is thrown your way.
Yeah.
And I think that's just like the delta, right? Like in Asia, it's just like they forget that we're just human.
Yeah.
Whereas here, like, you know, saying no is actually enables you or empowers you to do more in the long run. I remember like in when I was doing my first master's in Asia, I was in like a research lab, and I think everybody in that lab kind of went to like the top 3 companies that are in semiconductor manufacturing. And I just remember like the senior I was pretty close with, she was like a super positive, bubbly person. And then she entered the workforce before I did, right? And I still kept in touch with her. And when I was catching up with her, she was like just very negative and very like doom and gloom. And it was strange to see because like that's not how I know her to be. And then she said that after she started working for these companies, right, like she had to work until 12 or after 12 midnight. She goes home, right, and then she like showers and she washed her hair, and then after like 2 a.m. there was an issue and they called her back to
She had to physically go back
to the office. And she was just like, she couldn't say no, right, because her manager called her. And so she literally left work after 12 and then got back home, like had a little bit of rest, showered, and then got called back to the office, and she had to be there within 30 minutes, which is just wild to me, right? And like when I heard this, I was just like, this is not the environment I want to be in, and this is not the future I see for myself, right? And even though like there's no boundary setting that concept in Asia, I was just like, this is not it. This is not good for anyone, and like for any sort of healthy mind, and it's not sustainable. So then I wanted to pivot away from that, which is why I pivoted into like PM work. And although, you know, like PM work here is still like long hours, as you would know, right? Anything in like tech, I think, would be long hours, especially in hardware, I think. But still, at least there is some boundaries that you can set, and prioritize your health over other things like work.
Yeah. When I moved here, and there was a time when I think I'd been in the company for about a year. So like I did have a good working relationship with people, and I have a fair understanding of, you know, what a good project means and so on, or what a successful project means. There was a time, I think it was around 4:30 p.m. and we saw that there was an issue in production. And I messaged this engineer who was an American, and he was like, oh yeah, I see this. And he's like, I'll fix it tomorrow given it's the end of my work day.
Yep.
And I was like, it took me a minute to be like, my initial and most visceral reaction was that this guy is a bad employee.
I know what you mean, because I felt this before.
Yeah, and I'm like, what do you mean? It's going to take you like half an hour, and it's like in production.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this guy is terrible. And I was going to be like, I need to escalate this. But then I took a beat and I was like, this is how it should be.
I think it depends.
And I think it depends on the case as well. I don't think you're always right to be like, I'm not working a minute after 5. I don't think that's going to happen in the real sense. But yeah, it's moments like this where you have to unlearn a lot of your conditioning and what you think a good employee is.
Yeah, definitely. I think I experienced something similar where like I was new to the company and I thought everything was a priority, right? I thought everything was urgent. And I think it came from people telling me, oh, Barry, this is like, it needs to be closed today.
Right.
And so I was just like running around like headless, like trying to get people to sign off on things. And I was like pinging like certain people to get it closed, and they just were not responding. And so like I pulled in my manager, or like I pulled in my like seniors to kind of help. And like this person was at the gym. And I found out because like someone else then told me, oh hey, I saw so-and-so at the gym today.
And you're like, they're working out.
I was just like, they were working out when I am trying to get this thing closed before everybody goes out for the night. Yeah. And it's funny, like you said, right? Like we need to unlearn some of these things, because yes, you do need to set boundaries. Yes, you do need to like be that person that is like, okay, if this is not urgent and it's not like on fire right now, then it can be done tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
And I think I've learned that.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm still learning it. It's still sometimes I expect more from people, or I think I attribute how hard someone's willing to work to whether they're a good like employee or a colleague, and I'm still working through that. But now it's evident where I know I shouldn't push.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah. I wonder what my colleagues think about me bringing in some of this culture and like unlearning it. I wonder if they notice it. Yeah.
I mean, how diverse is your team that you work with? Is like a combination of people who have come from Asia with Western culture, or do you think it's majority Western?
Majority Western, with a smattering of people who've come in from Asia, and you can tell the difference.
Yep.
Speaking of what successful careers look like, you were in academia for a very long time.
Too long. Oh my gosh. The other day I was just like thinking, how long have I actually been in academia?
You have 2 masters.
2 masters, a total of like 3 years. And then undergrad 4 years. Technically 5 because I did half a year in South Africa.
Yeah.
So that's already 8 years.
Yikes.
And then I started school when I was like 3. So 3 until 18 was 15. So 15 plus 8 is 23.
Yeah.
A solid 23 years.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And you don't remember Tyndall effect?
Rima, it's irrelevant to the work that I do.
Right.
What is that even? The what even?
Nice. Yeah. So you spent many years of your life in academia.
Yeah.
And how did you decide that wasn't for you?
It's because I spent so many years that was very evident that I would not.
But a lot of people
a
lot of people in academia, like, they love it and they don't want to leave.
I think it takes a certain personality, to be able to want to do research, and credit to them.
Yeah, we need all sorts of people.
Yeah,
in
we
the world.
need people like that, right? But it's just not me.
Can't be you.
No, it cannot. I don't like the idea of just like sitting and doing research and then writing papers. I like the idea of working with people and doing or implementing these ideas into like real world problems. I think like, sometimes like this, you can see the research as like the front end, right? You need the front end in order to do the back end. And I think I enjoy the back end work a lot more than the front end.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself?
Similar. When I studied engineering in my undergrad, and I did
Barely.
I know, I was watching IMDb top 100. But yeah, I did engineering, and it was like biostatistics. So there was a lot of research work and analysis that went into like research projects and stuff like that. And it was in the drug manufacturing space. So that was like my...
Were they your drug supplier?
They were not. It was very PG-13. We were solving problems for malaria, okay? Doing God's work.
Tell them about what happened last night when your friends called you.
So, I don't know why I have this reputation.
You don't know?
I really don't know.
Sure.
But side note, squeeze in a little story. So we were out, me and Barry, we were just getting wine last night. And we stopped by this donut shop for a little like midnight snack treat. And I got like the sugar donut.
I thought you got a glazed.
It was glazed in sugar.
Okay.
So basically there was like some sugar. It looked... There was sugar on my face. And then when I was talking to my brother, it looked like I had done or snorted something. And he was like, whoa, is this who you are now? And I was like, I'm just eating a donut. The most PG-13 thing. So I don't know why I have this reputation when I'm doing the most PG-13 things in the world.
It's funny if like someone saw me in the same situation, they would not assume the same.
I don't know if they would not.
I think they would not. And so what I'm trying to say is this is a reputation you've built for yourself.
No, I'm a victim.
Okay,
Sure. What it is.
Sorry, sidetracked.
But yeah, so I was in like pharmacology, that space, and I was really into it while I was doing it. But when time came to actually graduate and see what opportunities I'd have outside of school and where I wanted to work, the thought of being in a research lab and doing research and finding out outcomes of your studies or analysis like 20 years later, because that's the time that it'll take for this to bake, your analysis to bake. I was like, I just can't do that. I like seeing results. Maybe it's because I'm an impatient person as well. I just like putting things out into the world.
Self-awareness is good.
Thank you. One pot calling kettle black. But I think, yeah, so immediately I knew that wasn't something I wanted to do. and I jumped into data science. So I didn't really use my degree for anything that I've done in the real world. But I think that's similar to you. I knew that I wanted to be in corporate.
Yeah, I think certain personalities, right? And there are lots of personality types. I think just certain personality types are more like, I think, execution and implementation of ideas and creative in that sense, right? And I think some people are just very wired in a way where they like to understand things from first principles, and I think those people are the ones that go into academia or do PhDs.
Yeah, so it's interesting that we both made that choice not out of pure financial success or financial gains.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's like necessarily more financial success in academia.
Yeah, but it wasn't a thing that the money was not what we were after. It was more about what we wanted to do day in and day out and how we wanted to live our life.
I think we're the type of people who want to bring visions to life, right? And I think like those visions are maybe what the people in research like lead up to, right?
Yeah.
So like, for example, like doing research on like robotics, eventually you want to see a robot like, do things for people. So people in research come up with the idea, the like ideation of like these and do all the research needed to build up this product. And then I think we are the people who makes it and executes it so that it becomes a product, a true product that you can sell and have in the real world. Right?
I definitely enjoy that pace of work more than the thinking.
Yeah. And then I think on top of that, right, like I think our personality types are just also people who would want to lead and motivate and influence. And I think like that is maybe less of a characteristic. I don't want to say this is true, but I think like overall from observation, I think it's less of a characteristic for people who are in academia, right?
I can see that.
They are people who are maybe more in backstage doing the work.
Yeah.
And then we're maybe the people front of stage trying to lead.
Yeah.
And like I think obviously leading, there's like different leadership styles, right?
Yeah.
They're also backstage leading. But yeah, I think that's just a general observation. And I think just by personality type, I think we're more leaning towards like corporate execution implementation.
Yeah.
Having segued into like leadership, right? I think in general, our personality types are more like that, right? And especially because we did the MBTI. The MBTI, Myers-Briggs personality test. And I think it's a pretty accurate representation of who we are.
I don't know if the F is accurate for me.
Dude, you are... Are you in denial? Because you're the most F person.
How dare you? I am not the most F person.
Do you know what
I'm a
F
baby
is?
F, yeah. Feelings.
That's okay. You have no self-awareness. You have so many feelings. I can't believe you just said that.
I don't want feelings.
Again, this is denial, basically. But yes, you're very F. It's very evident you're F. But I think we're not actually so J, to be honest. So Rima and I are both the same. We're ENFJ. E extrovert, N intuitive, F for feelings, and J for judgment. I believe that J is supposed to be more type A personality, but I don't think we're very type A.
I think we're A minus.
I think we're AB. I think we're in between depending on the situation and scenario.
Right.
I think we're A in terms of like overall plan for our life. We kind of have an idea of what we want in our life.
Yeah.
And that's how I think we're an A. Like, and we kind of work towards that, right?
Right.
But I think we're B in our day-to-day. Like, I don't think we plan out things by the clock.
Yeah.
But it also depends on workplace. I think in the workplace,
You are an A?
I'm closer to A than B because I like organization and I like structure because I think that's what gets things done in the workplace. I don't think I'm like super A in terms of like I need to plan out at 10 o'clock I need to do this, 11 o'clock I need to do this, because you can't work like that as a PM, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very like ad hoc, but I will say that like in order for us to get to a certain goal, I'll be like, we need to hit this milestone, we need to do this and this and this. And
Yeah.
that's part of being a PM.
Yeah. In the last 3 years, especially in the workplace, I've realized that we did the Briggs-Mayer test when we were in our masters in business school. And so I think it's very binary how that test categorizes people. And so what I think is interesting is that I've realized that if I think someone is, or the way I used to think, if someone was a J, right, and they need structure, and I'm working with someone who's a J, then even structure is quite nuanced, because it could be structure that you let them handle by themselves, like they can figure out what structure they want, as opposed to you give them the structure, right? So I think there's nuance to that too. And I think it's also like, I think I've realized it's the way you lead and the way you want to be led are so different based on your personality. And I didn't realize this. Like, a lot of people, you just need to leave them alone and they can come up with the structure by themselves. But some people need you to tell them the structure.
Right.
And so it's also interesting that I used to think that if you're a good worker or if you are a J, then you will come up with that structure yourself. But I'm realizing that it's not as black and white or as binary.
I agree with you, but I also will say that I think the Myers-Briggs actually isn't black and white. It's not binary. They do have a spectrum, and I think this is especially true for the E side of things. I don't think I'm as E as I used to be. I think I'm like maybe like 60-70% E, and 40 or 30 I.
I can say that. I think you've gotten less of an E.
Less what?
Less of an E and more of an I.
Yeah,
on the spectrum.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe that's just the nature of like getting older and not wanting to put myself out there anymore. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that yes, there's like a spectrum for everything, right? But I 100% agree with you. Like at work, depending on the person you're working with, right, you need to know how to like adjust accordingly. There are certain people that really do need the structure, and you just need to tell them you need to do A, B, C.
Yeah.
And they'll go and do it.
Right. And they'll do it well.
Yes.
But until you give it to them, they won't. They
Yeah.
won't. And then
Yeah.
you'll be like, oh,
Yes,
I have to work with this person.
Yeah. Having said that though, like how does like leadership come into that? Because I know that you're reading like books like Radical Candor, and what's that other book you're reading?
15 Commitments of a Conscious Leader. I feel personally attacked by that book, first of all, because the book describes a good leader and a bad leader. And the bad leader is someone who gets like a thrill out of their job, and as soon as they close like a project, they get really happy.
Yep.
And I'm like, attacked. Yeah. And the good leader meditates twice a day. They take like an hour-long lunch break to talk to their team, and I'm like, who has this kind of time? So I personally feel victimized by this book.
So what is like the top takeaways of like each of the books so far?
So Radical Candor talks a lot. I think Radical Candor had a wave in Silicon Valley, and I think I missed that wave because a few years back I feel like everybody was talking about Radical Candor.
Yes.
And I feel like I got on the bandwagon a little later.
Yeah.
But Radical Candor, the basic concept is that you need to give people feedback. And giving people feedback is tough. You need to develop the skills to give effective feedback. You can't just be like, you're shit at your job.
Yep.
That will not fly.
Yep.
So one is a personal journey that you need to go on to give effective leadership. And the second thing is, no one is going to wake up and just take leadership unless you build a relationship with them. They need to believe that you have their best interests in mind and that you're looking out for them, and that it's not coming from a place of hate or malice, but you both are like, you're literally
working towards the same.
Yeah, the person giving you feedback wants the best for you, and they're rooting for you, and they know how you can get to the next level, and that's why they're doing it. So it talks about the relationship between the person giving the feedback or the radical candor and the person receiving the radical candor.
Right.
I think people have also been misusing this a lot, because I think a lot of people are just like, hey, you're a jerk and you're bad at your job and just do better.
Do people do that?
I think a lot of people. I think we're lucky that the workplaces that we work at, the culture is not as toxic. But I have heard of people using radical candor as an excuse to just be.
I don't know if people do that up front. They'll
asshole.
be like reported to HR, no? I cannot imagine.
No, I've heard of story. Some of my friends are in sales teams, and it's quite cutthroat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I think radical candor, a lot of people are like proponents of it, and a lot of people are opponents of it, because I think the people who are opponents have seen people misuse the term radical candor. Like it's like people are being a dick and saying I'm being radically candor, but that's not what it is, right? You need to develop a relationship with people. And I think I see it. And building a relationship with someone takes time, and you need to put in the work to do that before you can start giving them feedback.
Yeah. Like have you implemented some of that in your workplace? And also, have you seen some of the good leaders implement some of those things? And what were those things that stood out to you?
Yeah, to your first point about what have I implemented, I think I have a hard time being vulnerable at work. Like I get on a call with people and immediately I want to have these action items and I want to get through it. I'm not very good at small talk at work. So, like I've seen how people sometimes use that to also build a relationship with people, like just small talk, like even the first 5 minutes of a call, they'll be like, oh, what do you do this weekend? And they find out about like, oh, this person has kids, and they build a relationship like that. I think that's something I'm learning to do, to be vulnerable and to like have more conversations that don't go anywhere. It's just like you're having a friendly conversation.
Places.
Exactly. But immediately I'm like, oh, if this has no point in this meeting, I'm not going to talk about it. But like, and I've seen people build relationships with people, and I've seen the difference it makes. For instance, I used to work with this product manager, and I didn't think he was technically very good at his job, but his whole team loved him. All the engineers loved him, and I didn't understand why. And I think it's because he really cared about them. He cared about their life outside of work. If one of these engineers, their kids were sick, this product manager, he knew that they were sick, and he'd ask and follow up. And I was like, that's so interesting, because I never thought of that as, like, now when I see it, it's so obvious. Like, you need to build a relationship with someone to have a meaningful work relationship. But I never saw it until I saw this guy do it. And I was so impressed because I just judged him purely on his technical aspects. And I was like, yeah, so I have seen it be successful, and I'm trying to implement it. It's not an easy thing to do when you're like, when small talk is just difficult for you. But yeah, I have seen the benefit of it. And I have seen managers have very difficult conversations with their direct reports. And I think the reason it went well is because they put in the work developing their working relationship before they gave that feedback. Right. So I've seen it. And it seems so obvious. Like, I'm sure when I tell you this, you're like, yeah, obviously, why do you have to read a book about it? But I think it was a good reminder.
I think, in my opinion, the best leaders out there aren't, obviously they're good at their jobs in terms of like they know the ins and outs of like the technical aspects. But I think the most successful leaders out there all have very high EQ. And I think like that's what gets those people up there. I think being able to be a leader requires a lot of interpersonal skills, because you're not running just the company, you're running the people, right? And in order for the company to run, you need to first be able to run the people. And so like just I think my goal and my like motto in like the workplace is to always have that emotional aspect, and like it's funny that you say, like you don't talk about like, oh hey, how was your weekend at the beginning of calls, because I think that's all I do at the beginning of my calls. And I'll take up like 10 minutes of the first of the meeting.
It's important because you are working with humans. And you can't forget that.
For sure. And like, to your point, right? Like, I think when I observe the best leaders in like the workplace, not only at my current job but my previous job, are the people who make an effort to get to know people at a personal level, right? The new CEO that has taken over is a woman,
Lina Nair.
Yes, and
represent.
She does that. She makes sure that everyone in the room has a say, and she remembers the name of people and what they have to say. And I think I watched a snippet of her interview, and she talks about how, like for the company to be successful, she first needs to start with people, because she believes that a people-centric company is what's going to make the company thrive. And I 100% agree with her. Everything she said was just like working from like bottoms up with making sure that people are happy in the company and people are doing good work, because happy people do good work, and naturally then the company will thrive. And I was like, 100% agree.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, so a lot of the book talks about how relationships really matter and how do you develop relationships. Especially, the book talks about how, especially in Silicon Valley, a lot of the case studies are based on Silicon Valley, because the author did work at Google and Meta when she developed these case studies to write the book. And she writes a lot about how people who are so technically advanced, or they've spent so much of their life, behind like writing code, they don't have the best social skills, right? And they're not bad people. It's just something to hone.
Yeah.
And how do you work with those people, first of all, if they're reporting to you, for instance, right? How do you help them hone those skills? It's super interesting read.
Yeah.
I know people who hate it and people who love it. I think it's one of those. The book had like a lot of good reminders, right?
Yeah, I like that you said reminders, because I think it's so easy to get caught up in like doing the work, because there's just so much that needs to get done, right? And you can't possibly be like spending all this time like just building these relationships, otherwise no work will get done. And so yeah, I think it is a good reminder. It's just that, you know, it's so hard to balance the two, but it's just you have to be mindful about it, because if you don't do that, then you kind of lose the ability to lead a group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think it's also interesting because in my first company, when I first joined the workforce, I became very good friends with the people I work with, and to this day, they're some of my best friends. But when I moved to America and when I joined my workplace, I knew that I would be friendly with some people, but I didn't imagine like a really deep friendship with them.
Yep.
I'm also remote, so I don't know if that weighs into it. And I think that's also why small talk is hard for me, because sometimes I don't have context on people's lives. And so it's hard for me to just make mundane conversation about the weather and stuff. So I think remote work, going from fully in person to remote, has also changed how I interact.
Right. How do you actively do something about it because you're remote?
So for the workplace, I do try to, like I said, build up a relationship with the people I work with even outside. Like last year, I started setting up random coffee chats with people I work with. Like if work is not crazy, then we just talk about what's happening in their life.
Yeah.
And I think that you can see the difference after I have those conversations. Even when I work with these people, you can see the difference it makes. And again, it's something that's so obvious, but I needed a reminder, and this book was a good reminder.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I think when I first joined the workforce here in America, people started setting up like coffee chats with me, and I was just like, there's just so much work to do. How do you have time to just go and sit and have coffee? And during coffee chats, you don't even sometimes talk about work. Yeah, and it's funny because now I set up a lot of coffee chats to make sure that, you know, my people that I work with are doing well, because I think that impacts the work they do, right? And so if you don't know what's going on with them personally, then how will you know like why they aren't performing their usual way? So I think like there is a real importance to it, right? Also, speaking of which, I wanted to quickly chat about like one of the most influential people that I've had in my life, and he was a mentor in college. Essentially, I had this mentor when I was in college in Taiwan, and he was like a industry mentor. So basically, they kind of like matched us with people in the industry that could give us guidance on what we wanted to do once we graduated. And I think I was just lucky to be matched with him. I saw his profile. So we get to look at profiles and then we kind of like ask for which mentor we want to go with. And his profile was just very similar to mine in the sense that he was brought up abroad, actually in India.
Wow, I haven't heard a lot of Taiwanese people being raised in India.
Yeah. So he actually was born and raised in India, and then only in college he moved back to Taiwan. So very similar to my background, where, you know, I was born and raised in South Africa, and then in college I moved to Taiwan. And so we both like went through the struggle of like Mandarin not being our first language, and then doing engineering and having a really hard time trying to get through it by trying to make new friends, trying to be good in your like work, especially in a different language. So just all of that combination, I felt like I could really connect with him, and we did, and we really like connected when we met. And it was like usual group of people. It's not like a one-on-one mentorship, but we somehow managed to stay in contact, and he always remembered details that I told him, just like in passing. And I was just very moved by the fact that he remembered these details about me, because we didn't chat often. So like I told him that, you know, I was looking to go to Cornell for school after I graduate and then see where I go from there. And even when I was at Cornell, like it was a year after, he would like ping me because he has my personal contact and would ask me how things are and like how's Cornell, and just like bringing up personal details that he remembered about me made me just feel like I was important. And I think that is such a key skill, right? Like the emotional intelligence in that. And then leading up, like obviously a lot in between happened, and I think just recently I went back to Taiwan to visit family. When I got there, I was just like, I should probably, I looked up the name in Mandarin because I only knew the name in English, and I looked up the name in Mandarin of this company, and I was like, oh, this is the company of
The mentor.
yeah. And I knew that the mentor was a leader in the company, but I didn't think like what role he was in. I know that he was a spokesperson for the company, which is a huge deal.
Okay.
But I didn't think it was like, and then when I got there, when I got picked up, I asked these people who picked me up, I was like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And they're like, yeah, he's the SVP of the company. And I was like, that is absolutely nuts that he's the SVP.
Yeah.
Because he was so humble and never mentioned it.
Yeah.
And then I had at this point already pinged him and said, hey, like, would love to say hello, drop in. I'm going to be there having a meeting with your folks. And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he blocked out an entire like 2 hours to have lunch with me. And like, this was the morning of. And I was just like, and when we caught up, he remembered so many details about me. And I was like, wow, this is what makes a leader such a good leader. And this is why he's sitting in the SVP seat of this company.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can see how if he has that relationship with his directs at work, and if he has like critical feedback to give them or areas of improvement, you can see how well they're going to take it.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this is really why he has such an influence on me, is because like observing that. Obviously, I think I try to build relationships, but like he is such a good reminder of what that can bring, right? And yeah, I think it just, when you are a leader who cares about people are willing to do things for you and for the company.
Yeah. You know what you said about how this person is successful because of the high EQ that they have? I feel like when my parents were in the workplace, that wasn't even a conversation that ever came up. It was so much top-down leadership. Like people on the top had something to say and do, and people at the lower rungs just had to get on the program and do it. Mm-hmm. There was no sense of this EQ that came in. But as I've grown older, I feel like that's constantly part of conversations about workplace culture.
Right.
And I think this idea that you can be a jerk manager is sort of dead and gone, right? And I think the ideas of leadership or effective leadership are constantly evolving based on the environment that we live in, right? And I think that in turn has affected how my career has evolved. And I'm sure you feel that too. And so I think this career narrative is going to be something that's constantly evolving. I'm constantly going to learn things that I thought I knew I wanted and unlearn them. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely so. I think like it's as with life, right? Like as you get in new information, you like change your perspective on things. But I think at the core, you're still the same person and you still work the same way. But it does require you to pivot and change accordingly, because that's the only way to survive, right? And to move forward. So it totally makes sense.
Yeah. I can't wait for you to become an entrepreneur and I can just like mooch off you.
We don't need
I'll be a silent investor.
Okay, I don't know about that. But sure, I'm just waiting for you to become rich, so that I don't have to work, and I can do whatever I want.
Good luck with that.
Chop chop.
Yeah, good luck with that. We'd be very interested to know how your career narratives have shaped up in the last few years, especially post-COVID, if that made a difference. I feel like a lot of people talk about how the last few years have been very different in the workforce.
Definitely.
So if you have stories to tell us, please link it on the comments. We're very excited to hear.
Yeah, I guess we'll wrap up here today. See you guys in the next one.
Toodles.
Bye.